If you are not vigilant, they will throw your application
in the garbage.
Hey guys, it's LunaBudoona, and today I'm going to be talking about something that's very near and dear to my heart, and that is getting into vet school. I'm going to talk about 10 tips that I would give someone if they were trying to get into vet school, and it may even help you get into vet school on your first try. Now, just a disclaimer, getting into vet school is notoriously difficult. If you're here, you probably already know that information, that vet school is not like med school. And I'm not saying that med schools are easy to get into, because I know that they're hard to get into. I am not discrediting anybody who's gotten into med school, because it is hard to get into any type of professional school, let alone a medical professional school. But I say that to say that there are hundreds of med schools in the United States. There are upwards of 30 to 40 vet schools in the United States. So, as you can imagine, it's pretty competitive to get into vet school, especially as requirements get more and more steep. People are getting smarter these days, whether they're figuring out how to get good standardized test scores, or they are just doing really well in their classes, have really cracked the codes on their classes on how to get a high GPA. Tip number one should be the most obvious: get a good GPA. I had to keep my GPA above a certain threshold, meaning I had to keep it above 3.3 so that I could keep my scholarship that covered my tuition in its entirety. But what if you don't have to keep your GPA above a certain point to maintain a scholarship? It can get kind of challenging to sort of, I guess, push yourself and grind. But you have to remember that a GPA, while it's not the most important thing on an application, it is going to be something that is a big part of it. So a lot of applications have one of two requirements to even be considered. You have to meet the GPA requirement, or you have to meet the standardized test requirement. Now, it's becoming pretty commonplace where a lot of schools actually don't even take the GRE anymore. So a lot of schools are realizing that some people just aren't good standardized test takers. They may be good test takers on material that they actually can apply and have learned, but they're not really good at taking standardized tests like the GRE or the SAT or the ACT. So a lot of colleges are not relying on the GRE anymore, and they're saying that it's not even required at all. Getting back to the GPA part, if you want to keep a good GPA, you have to be smart about how you spend your time. You have to figure out what works for you when you're studying. I know I had a hard time with that, because when I was in high school, I really didn't have to study. So when I got to college, trying to navigate taking tests that you have to actually apply knowledge and solve case studies, or even just solve equations, or to solve reactions like in organic chemistry, it can become really challenging because I wasn't entirely sure how to study for these things. Do whatever you need to do to get your GPA to where it needs to be. Whether it go to tutors, I went to tutors very often. A lot of organizations, or even your school in general, they will supply free tutors for you. So I would say find any tutors you can that are free and take advantage of that. Well, not really free, but you're paying for them through your tuition. You're probably thinking, well, okay, I have to keep a good GPA, but how good of a GPA? Most schools only require that you have a 3.0, which should not be that difficult to keep. There are only really a few classes that should trip you up that you may get like a C- or even a D in, and I recommend that if you do get a D in the class that you retake it no matter what it is. For example, I got a D in Organic Chemistry 2 the first time that I took it, but I wasn't going to let that slide because why? I was determined to get into vet school. So I knew that having a D on my transcript wasn't going to look good, but having an A in the same class would kind of balance it out. So the committee may say, oh, okay, well, she got a D the first time, but she took it again and she got an A. So that's totally fine. Stuff outside of class also plays a big part in your GPA. You cannot party all the time. I really shouldn't say you cannot party all the time, because there are plenty of people that were in my same major and they would be posting pictures of them partying every single weekend, but yet they would have a better grade than me in the class. Cool. For me, that was not going to work. I need time to recharge. I can't just drink a Red Bull or drink some coffee and be totally fine. Like, no, that does not work for me. So you need to figure out what works for you, and don't try to keep up with somebody else because they are not the same person as you. You are your own person and you know your limits. So if you don't know your limits, figure them out, but figure them out safely. When you go to college, you are becoming an adult. So it's time to act like one. Vet schools don't want somebody who they can go to their social media and see them blackout drunk, laying on the floor on somebody's Facebook post. Like, that's not what recruiters want. That's not what the admissions people want to see. Party wisely and do not party the night before a test. Second tip that I would give somebody is to join extracurriculars that interest you, and also join extracurriculars that would look good on a resume or your application. I joined a co-ed fraternity called Alpha Phi Omega, and Alpha Phi Omega's 3 cardinal principles are leadership, friendship, and service. That sounds pretty good, right? Now, I didn't just join it so it would look good on a resume. I joined it my freshman year, second semester of my freshman year, because I wanted to make more friends. What does an admission committee like to see? Someone who has leadership. Document times when you have had a leadership role and kind of either make a mental note or actually make a document of situations that you've had to handle or something that you've had to orchestrate or organize, so that if there is a question on the application, which what there probably will be, where they ask you leadership opportunities have you had, and can you say why would you be a good leader, or blah blah blah, something like that. Joining organizations that give you those opportunities are really beneficial to beefing up your application. Stay in at least one organization for at least 2 years, because it shows that you can stick to something, and it shows that you can be consistent and reliable and dependable. Tip number 3, which would probably be one of the most important tips on this list, is get valuable veterinary experiences. If you are wondering why they even want you to have veterinary experience, it's because they need to see that you know what goes into this field. So when I say valuable veterinary experience, I also mean a variety of veterinary experience. UGA's requirement for getting in is 250 hours of veterinary experience. After I graduated, I took a gap year because I knew that I did not have enough experience. In my gap year, I got a job at a veterinary clinic, and I've been working there it'll be 2 years in June actually that I've been working there. So I would say I would have close to 3,000 hours. But veterinary experience hours aren't the only thing that is going to get you in. So don't stress if you don't have like 5,000 hours. As long as you meet their minimum requirement, they'll look at your application. Now, I would say to try to get at least 500 to 1,000 hours, because that's a pretty good number. It shows that you've been doing it for quite a long time. Like, maybe wondering, what are vet hours? Vet hours are hours that you are either working or volunteering directly with a veterinarian. So whether you're working for a veterinarian and they're your boss, or you're volunteering for a veterinarian and you're just helping out around the clinic, even if you're just cleaning, even if you're just, setting up a surgical area, it still counts as veterinary hours because you're being directly supervised by a veterinarian. Number 4 that would be very beneficial is to form a relationship with a professor, preferably one in STEM, because veterinary science, veterinary medicine is considered to be a STEM field: science, technology, engineering, mathematics. The reason why I say to have a face-to-face relationship with a professor is a lot of people may tell you that it doesn't really matter, but I think it helped my application to have a recommendation from a professor. The professor I got a recommendation from was an animal science professor, so I figured that would look pretty good in my application. So it may not help the most, but it definitely won't hurt you. Also, make sure that you got a decent grade in that professor's class. If you took their class and you got a C, you might not want to ask them for a recommendation. But if you got a B plus or an A minus or an A, then I would recommend that you ask them, that you form a relationship with them, make sure that they know that you are interested in being a veterinarian, and keep in touch with them. And so later on down the line when you're applying, you can email them and say, "Dear Professor X, my name is Camille, and I took your class in fall of 2017, and I got an A in your class. I really enjoyed your class. As you know, because they should already know, I'm applying for veterinary school, and I would like to use you as a recommendation." Tip number 5 is to get recommendations from veterinarians that know you well. So for me, I got recommendations from 2 veterinarians, both of which I worked for, both of which were Black, African American. One of them had a veterinary surgery center back in Athens, and another one has a general practice here where I live, and that's where I currently work. So they both knew me really well because I work with them, and I work with the doctor in Athens for about 3 months. It was a summer internship, and of course I've been working where I currently work for almost 2 years. Make sure that they know who you are and know what you stand for, and make sure that they would think that you'd be a good candidate for vet school. I would say ask veterinarians that you have worked with that can speak to your drive, your intellect, your passion, your compassion, your empathy, all of those good qualities that a veterinarian should have. The 6th tip I would say is to get a wide variety of experiences. So to give you an example, my experiences was my vet experience, of course, the organizations that I was in, and the research that I did. So I actually researched with the USDA the summer before my sophomore year, I believe, and that was a really great experience. Really helped me see that maybe lab work isn't for me, but it looked really good on my resume because I ended up getting a publication out of it at a conference that we ended up going to. So doing things like that really sets you apart from the competition, because a lot of people may have like 10,000 hours of veterinary experience, but you have something that they don't, which would be research experience in an actual lab. And if you can get a publication out of it, that would bring your application up a lot. Another variety of experience would be studying abroad. So I really wish I had done this when I was an undergrad. I had so many opportunities to do it, but I just never pulled the trigger because, I don't know, maybe money or something was an issue. But if you're on loan, then you may as well do it. I would say to study abroad and try to join animal organizations like the Pre-Vet Club or something similar to that, because they usually have a good variety of opportunities that would let you study abroad. So I know one of the opportunities was to study abroad in Malaysia, another one in Thailand, another one in Africa, working with big cats or something. So I would study abroad. Tip number 7 is we're kind of really getting into the nitty gritty of how you should do your application. And tip number 7 would be to do your application earlier rather than later. So the VMCAS is an online application. It is your one-stop shop to apply to any veterinary school you want to apply to. So it really does not make any sense for you to wait until a week before the application is due, because the VMCAS application opened up in, like, I believe February it opened up this year. So you have a pretty long time to get it done. And they give you all this time because some people may still be graduating, but they're also applying this cycle. And let's be honest, people drag their feet, especially if you're asking for a recommendation. They're going to drag their feet. You need to give your recommenders as much time as possible to get your recommendation done, because your application will not be complete without it. But the reason to do your application earlier is because if there's a mistake on the application, then they can notify you so that you can fix it and then resend it back to them without missing the deadline. Along goes with that to really think about your responses when you're doing the essays. So one of the essay questions is probably going to ask you, what would you like to do in the veterinary field? How would you contribute to the veterinary field if you become a veterinarian? And really sit down and try to think about your responses. Because yes, you could say, well, I want to help dogs and cats, and I want to do this or that, but you really have to sit and think about what is something that is going to set me apart. So for me, I really emphasize wanting to help other Black women like myself become veterinarians, because the veterinary field is highly lacking in Black people, not just Black women, lacking in Black men too. So it's a very Caucasian field, if you know what I'm saying. So I highlighted the fact that I wanted to help somebody after me become like me. I also talked about, what I would actually like to do as a career, so I talked about how I would like to maybe be a veterinary surgeon, and I also talked about how I would maybe like to be in research or be an industry vet. And with that, I also researched companies that would employ the type of veterinarian that I would like to be, so that I could kind of sort of name drop them in my application to let the admissions officers know that, hey, she kind of did her research on this, so she really kind of knows what she's talking about, and we can trust her when she says that this is something that she's actually really considering. Tip number 8, which kind of goes along with what I was talking about before with wanting to better your community, is to have a mentor and to also be a mentor. So I would say to have a mentor, because you never know if there's going to be some situation that comes up that you are like, I don't know what the heck to do here. You have a mentor who could help you and say, hey, well, when this happened to me, this is what I did. It helps to have somebody who is already in the field, or somebody who is an upperclassman in their same major, who can kind of help guide you and basically make your life a little easier. And with that, I would say to be that for somebody else, because A, it feels good and to actually help somebody in that way, and B, it looks good on your resume and on your application to say that, hey, I was a mentor and I'm helping the next generation be something great. Number 9, second to last tip, I would say, is apply smart. That means double check the admissions requirements, look at how much it's going to cost to go there, whether you're out of state, which you 9 times out of 10 will be, or in state for me. Apply where you could actually see yourself, envision yourself living and going and staying for 4 years or more. So that means location-wise, climate-wise, temperature, weather, environment, the whole vibe. Like, do you want to be in like an urban city type of thing, or do you kind of want something a little slower, kind of in rural area? Because it is not cheap to apply, okay? It costs money to apply. That's why when a lot of these people that I would see online, they're talking about their experience, they're like, oh yeah, so I applied to 30 schools this cycle. I'm like, 30? 30. You applied to 30 schools. I only applied to 3 and it was almost $500. That's how you know these people got money. But that's another topic. That's another topic for another video. Apply smart. Double check entrance requirements. Now, this happened to me. I was not smart. I applied to Mississippi, and after I sent my application off, I was like, cool, great, I'll hear back soon. And they sent me an email. They were like, is there a class that you took that you maybe forgot to put on your application? And I was like, what? And they were like, yes, we don't see the biochemistry class. And I was like, oh my God. I looked through and I saw that I did not have a biochemistry class. I had a molecular biology, but I did not have a biochemistry. So I was like, wow, there is nothing that I can say. There is no class that I can say fits that requirement. And so they basically had to throw out my application because I didn't meet the requirements. That was like, what, $100 wasted because I didn't double check the requirements. And I feel like I would have maybe gotten in there because they took the time out to email me, which means that they were thinking that I would be a good applicant. Look at how much it's going to cost. Vet school is not cheap. It is not El Cheapo. Like, you either have to have money or you need to get loans, which most of us are going to be doing, me included, is getting loans. So if you can go somewhere where you would only be 190K in debt as opposed to 300K, do it. All vet schools are pretty much the same anywhere you go. So be wise about how much debt you are going to be in. Tip number 10, last tip, should be pretty self-explanatory. Make sure this is what you want to do. I have heard of I have heard of people who go through all of this, do all the veterinary experience, do the application, and they get into like 3 or 5 schools. They finally pick one and they get to the school and they take a semester and they realize, I don't like this. And that is a lot of time wasted. That is a lot of time wasted. If you are in high school right now, or even if you are halfway through college and you're watching this video, or even if you are getting ready to apply and you're watching this video, make sure that this is really what you want to do. You're going to accrue a lot of debt doing this, and it's going to take a lot of blood, sweat, and tears, and it's going to take a toll on you emotionally, maybe. So you just need to be prepared for all of that and really decide if this is something that you want to do. Also, relax, okay? Don't stress about it. If you don't get in the first time, that's totally fine. It's a lot more common for somebody to get in their second time anyway, which is why I was blown away. I was flabbergasted that I got in my first try. Okay, so don't stress. Just have plans in place in case you don't get in your first time. Am I going to stay in this job or am I going to switch to another job? That's something that I was really thinking about, because I figure, well, if I don't get into vet school this time, I can either retake my GRE, which I didn't do as well as I would have liked, but I didn't do horrible. I can either retake my GRE or I can get a different job at a different facility, which would give me a different experience and give me something else to put on my application. So it's really all up to you how you would like to handle if you don't get in. But of course, be positive, be optimistic. Don't just be a negative Nelly. Don't just think, oh, I'm not gonna get in the first time, nothing matters. Just really be optimistic about your future. Like, it is okay if it doesn't work out this time, then who's to say that it won't work out the next time? All you need is one yes. That is it for my video for this time, guys. Let me know if you have any other questions. If you think I should have included something in my list, go ahead, comment down below, let me know. Coming up with 10 things is kind of weird because a lot of things kind of mush and flow into each other. So like, comment on this video, Subscribe to my channel if you'd like to see more videos of me doing stuff. I plan on doing a lot more videos on vet school in general, especially once I actually start vet school. So I'll be making a lot of videos, a lot of vlogs, letting you guys see kind of behind the scenes of vet school when I'm not just sitting in class all day. I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and I'll see you next time. Peace.